Welcome back. This week we're talking about episode 8 of Siberia. You may notice things look a little differently, and that's probably because I'm using a different camera. Anyway, I got a tweet this past week from Shayla Heavner, who you may recognize as @proclaimingpink, letting me know that she found some information about the Evenki tribe as she was researching for her blog. I found it all quite interesting, so allow me to give you the abbreviated story, and then you can go to Shayla's blog and read it in full with her analysis. The story goes that long ago the Evenki tribes were feuding, so the shamans began using evil spirits to curse rival tribes. One shaman, named Magankan, used his magic to call on the thunder god Agdi to destroy the rival tribes, and the result was the Tunguska event. He's kind of like Russian Thor. Anyway, they caused all of the other tribes to stay away from the valley for fear of Agdi and Magankan's power. Legend holds that Magankan was so mighty that he became invulnerable through the power of evil spirits and had others try to kill him by shooting him in bullets and stabbing him with knives, but nothing could slay him. So when Magankan eventually died, his soul left his body to wander the spirit world until he could come back and possess one of his descendants. Now Shayla speculates that Miljan is not only enthralled by Agdi, like I thought, but actually possessed by the evil spirits of the valley, or perhaps Magankan himself. It's a good theory, but it would require Miljan's bloodline to run back to 1908 Siberia, which is only about 4 or 5 generations, if the writers on the show wanted to adhere strictly to the lore of the area, that is. Anyway, it's completely within reason that someone born and raised in Montenegro would have family who once lived in Siberia, but in the context of the show, we haven't seen a lot of Miljan's backstory to make that kind of call. So, without further interruption, let's start the review. Quick episode recap. Sam and the others lost the beacon.
Where's the beacon?
What?
Natalie made a surprise appearance.
It's her. It's Natalie.
Johnny chose a direction and started walking.
I think I might have gotten us all killed.
Annie vowed to bury Natalie.
I'm not leaving her. Annie.
Joyce started seeing things in the snow.
Guys, there's footsteps.
Sabina finally told her backstory.
I thought I'd win this, and I'll get my baby back.
Johnny died.
Your heart stopped.
Natalie's funeral was interrupted. Daniel found a research lab.
Yeah, it's right there.
Huh?
And Sabina had a bad feeling about this.
I don't think they made it back.
This week we had 3 storylines going, and I'm going to try and keep things organized by tackling them one at a time. The Fellowship awoke the morning of day 11 to find that the beacon they had been following was nowhere in sight. If I can be honest, I thought the beacon disappearing was dumb. The whole Fellowship storyline this week was just one odd set piece after another, and I found it strange that they would take away the beacon or have Joyce seeing things and never really follow up on them. Oh, the beacon is gone, no big deal, let's keep walking. Oh hey, here's a giant structure in the woods, whatever, let's go to those buildings. I feel like they were throwing things in just for the sake of including them, and I don't think they gave each thing its due time for evaluation. Right now we have no explanation for the beacon, and I've resigned myself to not finding out what the beacon was all about. I've made my peace with that. What I would like to know about, though, is Joyce seeing the footprints in the snow, and that shot of Joyce where she had her hood up and she says,
My mom is there. You want to meet her? Come.
It was a quick moment, to be sure, and very quiet. Chances are if you had your volume too low, you missed it. I had to put my big headphones on to hear it clearly. I have a sneaking suspicion that one of those spirits I mentioned earlier might be hitching a ride in Joyce's head. Either that, or the Research Institute has something inside that's giving off some pretty powerful psychic energy there. Speaking of emitting energy, the tower that the Fellowship found looked eerily like Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. I'm not sure of the historical truthfulness of this, but certain accounts say Tesla's massive tower could fire a beam of energy, which he intended to test by firing it at the North Pole. Story goes that Nikola overshot the North Pole and hit Tunguska, causing the massive explosion that the Evenki attributed to Agdi. Anyway, Tesla apparently tried to sell this technology to the American and British governments, but they turned him down and he died sometime after. The Russian government then set about trying to duplicate his Wardenclyffe Tower and its destructive power. Hence, the giant electro tower showing up in the middle of Siberia next to a science lab. I'm guessing that the Institute is going to turn out to be your standard horrible science gone awry type of thing. It's probably going to reveal that the creature in the woods is not an alien, which kind of bums me out. But it does take a step in the direction of grounding the world in less of a science fiction setting and more of a straight-up horror setting. I know there are a bunch of people out there just chomping at the bit for a peek of whatever creature, or creatures now, is prowling around the woods, but I still don't want to see this thing. Monsters are at their most frightening when we can't see them, kind of like that crashing that everyone hears in the next room at the end of that storyline.
Somebody here?
Back at camp, we picked up right where episode 7 left off, with Nico and the others rushing off into the woods to look for Irene. I don't like how Sabina lost her chance to confront Esther. In fact, throughout the entire episode, Sabina never brings up the sleeping pills. A lost opportunity, if you ask me. Irene is nowhere to be found, but they do find Natalie frozen in a snowbank. I think most people knew it would be Natalie in the snow, because one of the preview shots showed a bit of yellow fabric, which pretty much gave it away. Despite knowing it would happen, I really liked how they handled it, and Annie was great in this episode, and really pulled out all the stops for this one. However, I have to voice my frustration with Nico. I'm not sure how it's possible for one person to be so stubborn. This is the guy who told Sabina not to inspect Natalie's body so the authorities could take a look. There are no authorities, they're alone in the woods. He asks questions that people don't know the answer to, and then gets angry when they actually share what they guess is going on. If you're going to ask someone's opinion of a situation, don't immediately turn around and call their answer stupid. Seriously, Nico, you need to stop. Just stop. Anyway, I found it interesting that Esther offered to stay behind and help Annie. On one hand, I'm sure she didn't want to run the risk of coming face to face with Miljan and having her betrayal exposed, but on the other hand, I think when she learned that Miljan had taken Irene, I think she came to a harsh and sudden realization that she had done some terrible things and needs to redeem herself for doing them. Going back to the first point though, I think I keep giving Esther too many outs and second chances. Every time I think she's turning over a new leaf, she just goes back to her old sneaky ways. Of course, Esther's mischief is the least of their worries by the end of that scene.
My God! God!
Once Sabina and Nico left Annie and Esther to bury Natalie's body, their story slowed to a crawl. We got some very in-depth background on Sabina, which was good to hear after going for so long without any idea of who she was. But aside from Sabina giving her backstory, not much else happened. Nico was annoying, they stumbled around the fog for a bit, and by the time they got back, Esther and Annie were gone, and there were footprints in the snow. The footprints as of late bother me, because the footprints that Daniel saw back in episode 2 look nothing like the prints we're seeing now. These new prints are narrower, and the toes are much closer together. It's not clear to me whether that means that there are multiple varieties of the creature in the woods, but if the Research Institute is going to turn into a genetics lab, then I think it's a safe assumption that there are not only several creatures, but each creature is probably also unique. And now it's time for the Tweet of the Week. This week's tweet comes from @NicoSiberia. It says, "Oh, and if you didn't know, hashtag Siberia Season 2 is trending like wildfire. You guys want it, so let's get it. @NBC Siberia, hashtag Siberia, @NBC. I tried to go back and figure out who started the hashtag for Siberia Season 2, but it's been a few weeks and it seems to be picking up steam. I haven't weighed in on the subject and I'm apprehensive to throw my support behind another season without knowing how the narrative is going to turn out. I'm wary of having another Lost on television, where eventually the story goes into a tailspin and before you know it, this guy was the smoke monster all along and the island is really heaven and you get this lame series finale with everyone in a church. Yeah. If Siberia can tell its story in one season and leave people satisfied that the characters have gone through enough appropriate arcs, then why mess with a finished product? George Lucas messed with a finished product, and now we have Star Wars movies with more CG than dialogue. I would love to have another season of Siberia, as long as it doesn't spoil the first season. I'm afraid I didn't find episode 8 as enthralling as some of the other episodes. There were plenty of small moments here and there, but the Fellowship storyline bounced around too much and not enough happened back at camp to make for a compelling episode until the last few minutes. Despite that, I think the episode was necessary. It served its purpose to provide exposition and put the characters in a position where things can happen next week. With Annie, Esther, Irene, and Millian all missing from the cabins, and Johnny and the others not alone in the Institute, I'm looking forward to next week more than I am looking forward to watching this episode again. As always, please comment below to keep the conversation going, subscribe to my channel for more of these weekly reviews of Siberia, and follow me on Twitter to see what I have to say during each episode. So until next week, I'm Rick D, and thanks for watching.